Friends, family and keepers of the faith, welcome to another Del Boy blog, and as ever I'm going to date stamp this. It is year 5 blog 10, or in legacy numbers blog number 218, and it's dated the 26th of April 2026. And I'll just look out the window and tell you it's been a wonderful sunny couple of days. Absolutely gorgeous. I haven't enjoyed any of it, unfortunately. I'll explain a little bit in regards to my week. But first of all, I'm going to go through the news, which is depressing as always. So here we go. The Mandelson controversy continues, with Labour backbenchers calling for a sleaze probe to be initiated. Oh, this Mandelson thing. Oh, it's irritating. If it's not that, it's constant party political broadcasts saying I must go and vote on the 6th of the next month, and look at how much there's going to be change going on the 6th because of how Labour are, how they're being perceived, and how all the other ones are scrambling to get your votes, etc., etc. It's a real nightmare because of everything that's going on in the world, and I don't trust any politician. So we're in that same situation that we had, and if there was a major election going on, I think it'll be a hung vote. It really is just atrocious, and that's my feelings on it rather than an opinion. So what else have we got? This one was a surprise. It says the Falkland Islands sovereignty is under threat as the US and the Pentagon have sent an email and state that the UK hold should be removed as punishment after its stance on the Iran war. So because we've got a prime minister that basically said it's not our war and we'll come along and defend our bits, but that's it. The US have said, no, we think it's bloody awful that you didn't actually do everything we say and said and have done. And so therefore we're going to look at other stuff that you've got, and we're going to basically take that away from you. Oh, honestly, do we need anything else? We've got the Straits that are causing us problems because of that affect our economy because of this Iran war. We've got everything that's going on in Ukraine. The economy is a bust. The Prime Minister under scrutiny, and now we've got the USA putting pressure and saying, hey, because you didn't join us, we're taking this away. Oh, it just gets me upset. And, what can I say about it? It's awful. And then the next one, the Iran war continues to affect the economy as fuel and goods continue to become short supply. Yeah. So do we want that headache of the Falkland War and the Falkland Islands sovereignty with all of this going on? No, we bloody well don't. You have to excuse my French. Then we've got this. King Charles prepares to visit the USA next week, with the security being ramped up after a shooting incident in Washington last week. So the USA is doing a great deal of scrutiny and planning for our king to go over there after Trump was invited to come over here. And we've got Trump basically each week saying how bad the UK is and all of that sort of stuff, and wants to shake hands with our king because they've invited him over. Now, I have a few things, I suppose, on my mind in regards to this. Do you know how it is when somebody buys you a present and you feel, oh, I've got to buy one back? Is this what it is, or is it an actual invite? Do you know what I mean? When Trump was invited over, it was a genuine, you've just come in, all of our monarchs have wanted to shake hands with the new Prime Minister and show solidarity and and all of that sort of stuff. If this was Trump coming in and our Queen was still alive, would he have invited her over? Probably not. I've shook your hand once, missus. Thanks very much, is probably what it would be. And, the king's been in place now for several years, and did they invite him over in the first year of his sovereignty? No. So, yeah, I look at it as that present thing, where you feel obliged. Do you know what I mean? That's personally how I look at it and how I feel about it, but, that's just me. I do apologise if that's a very negative attitude. Then we've got Northern Ireland is on high security alert after a car explosion outside a police station. All of this is going on a lot. So we've had fire bombs being chucked into Jewish buildings, and now we've got bombs or or cars, should I say, being exploded outside police stations in Northern Ireland. And apparently these events are going on all over Europe. Jewish communities, synagogues, police stations, ex-buildings, all to do with religion or authority being attacked. And it's just awful. No good news in any of this. It's just atrocious. And the only other thing is I turned the telly on for my mother this morning, and the London Marathon has started with high public profile and expected good input for high-end and local charities. Yes, I've liked the London Marathon. I've got that tune playing in my head now. It's full of pomposity and sovereignty in that music that plays. And then you've got all the commentators there talking about the para people that are now racing along in their wheelchairs or artificial limbs to show that nothing can attack them, over this 20-plus mile marathon that they're in. And then you've got all of the community doing stuff for their charities, trying to do this run to show A, they can do it, B, to raise money for their charities. Absolutely wonderful. I have no problems with the London Marathon at all compared to certain aspects of other TV type charity work, like Comic Relief and so forth, where I had good feelings about Comic Relief and so forth. It's when they started to split the money into foreign areas and not our local charities, which is what it originally was from memory. Children in Need we had, and that split itself and all of that. I used to look forward sometimes to those things. They were major things, and you had all your favourite TV programmes doing a little skit. It was all good fun. And a day where you could go out in the street and have a red nose was, I thought pretty good. But I suppose as I've got older, I've become more cynical of it. So you probably need to pay less attention to me on it, but that's how I naturally feel. But the London Marathon, yeah, really, really glad that that's going on. So after I do that, I usually talk about my week, and usually I'm in a very sort of like 50-50 and say it's a challenging week, but it's been a disastrous one. And I'll explain why, and it's to do with my mother. So we'll get my mother out the way first. It starts off, Monday gets out the way as normal. Tuesday is a visit from Millbrook. Now, Millbrook is who supply equipment, and we had an occupational health review done. And in that review, they looked at some of the things and said, we can improve this. So they looked at our commode and said, yeah, that should go, and we can get you a wheeled commode that would basically give you a better sort of like seat for it, and it'll give you wheels, so it's like a wheelchair, and you'll be able to wheel your mother to areas of the house so that she can have her hair washed and things like that. Absolutely marvellous. So they put that down. They looked at the chair that they delivered several weeks ago and said, yeah, we can see how disgusting that is. We'll get you a better chair. And they put that down. We talked about the table that we got, which is a 2-leg table on casters that basically goes over a chair, and my mother is now in a bed most of the time. We want her out of that bed as often as possible, but we know that that is something that you have to build my mother's energy up to do. So at the moment, we're getting my mother out of bed maximum, I would say, 3 times a week. And when she is out, she's out for a good 4 or 5 hours. So it is a good set of exercise, but it exhausts her. So you tend to find the next day, don't get her out. So that was great. Liked the idea that we're getting a chair as well, because you can't expect your mother to sit for 5 hours on a commode, regardless of whether it's got a seat and it's on wheels. So that was one thing. And the chair and the table, what we're talking about in regards to the table is it can't go over the bed because it's got 2 legs. And most of the hospital beds, if you ever go into a hospital, you'll see that they have 1 leg on casters, which stretches across, and the table goes across the length of the legs. But one side of that straight leg is cut away, so you can go under the bed, and the table stretches over. Absolutely marvellous. Can't wait for that. Please put us down for that. And we mentioned also about the sheets that were given to us don't have what they call a slide sheet. They said, yeah, not a problem. You should have had 2 parts. You're only given 1 part. We'll write you down for another 2 sets of sheets. Marvellous. And, of course, because we mentioned about the hair washing, they're going to give us what they call a pump-up, blow-up washable bowl, which is portable. Brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much. So there's going to be a commode taken away, a chair taken away, maybe the table if the right table comes, and we're going to be getting all this new equipment. Fantastic. And Tuesday was the day for the delivery. The guy turned up, showed me the sheets of paper. They're here. I can show you them. There's no problem with it. Look, there you are. Look. Okay. And first of all, he goes down the list of, this is what I'm delivering. And he had put down here slide sheet, overbed table, chair, commode glide about it's called, and a personal inflatable hair wash basin. For which, next to the slide sheets, he put O/S. Next to the inflatable hair wash basin, he put O/S. And that was it. So I asked him the question, what does O/S mean? He says, out of stock. I went, oh, so you haven't got them? No. Oh, all right. What do I go about getting those chased then? He said, you need to phone up. Oh, okay. Yeah, all right. Another phone call. Not a problem. So what are you picking up? And I mentioned the commode. He said, got nothing here about the commode. So that's not happening. I'm picking up, he said, the high back chair, and a wheelchair and a cushion. I said, well, that's not quite true. You know, you're supposed to be taking away other stuff. You're delivering stuff, and that means we'll have it twice. You'll have to speak to my depot, is what he said. Sorry, if you want to know why I'm looking backwards, it's because the cat opened the door, so I'm just going to go and shut it. Apologies. There we go. Sorry about that. You could have had the cat coming across on here, and you'd have been able to have said hello. Tommy, name is. Not our cat, Stray, that he's been coming in for 10 years. So there you are. I think he's been seen anyway before. Going back to this, I didn't have a problem with the driver. He's only got the notes that he's been given, but it seems very much like I've got to make further phone calls. So he took he took away what he was supposed to take away that was written down, which was also our ROS return, which was, we had a new one called Away Bridge, which has got a seat, and happy with that. I did bring down the wheelchair, and he took that, and he took away a short-wheeled Zimmer frame that we had 2 of. Happy with that. But he wouldn't take away anything that was not on the list, which means that we had 2 of things. When he took the stuff off the truck, he came out with a table, and it had no casters, and it was a half table. So it's one of those ones where it goes under the bed, but it has no wheels, so you have to keep lifting it up and taking it away. And I said, that's not what was ordered. We asked for one with casters. And he said, so do you want me to take it off the van or not? And I said, well, I'll have to make a phone call again to talk about that, won't I? And he said, yeah, we can always pick it up later on. And I said, okay, so take it off. The next thing he took off was the worst. So we had this chair, and it was not suitable for my mum, because when she starts to fall asleep, she falls forward. So we were supposed to be getting this other chair. The chair he gave us, and it's listed on here, is let's have a look, compact perching stool with arms and back. I wouldn't have given it to a toddler. That's what I'm trying to say here. It looked like the sort of chair that a nursing school would give, the ones that would have had a sort of like a desk in front of you for you to do your colouring in on, right? And I said, what's that? And he said, well, that's the chair. And I said, oh, it's ridiculous. And he said, do you want it? And I said, look, just take it off. I'll have to have another word, because I didn't even know what it was for, to be quite honest. And I said, I'll query it again with Millbrook. I think he probably got a bit pissed off with me, really, with my disappointment. But I never rose my voice with him. I said that the notes weren't very clear for you, and that's my disappointment. And he said, not a problem, buddy. That's pretty much what he said. Just phone up. I'm sure they'll get it sorted. And what else can I say? We got one good item, which was the wheeled commode. The rest was crap. So I phoned up Millbrook, and there was no one there. I phoned them up again later on that day and left a recorded message and waited for a call back. Now, we've still got carers coming in, remember, 4 times a day. So I asked the carers, what do you think of this chair? And they said, that chair, is supposed to be used for old age pensioners to sit on when they go into a shower. And I said, oh, so it's a chair that you use it for disabled people when they need to clean themselves. And they said, yeah, exactly. And I said, what the hell has occupational health written down that as a replacement to the chair we got? And they said, we don't know, but that was not suitable for your mum. And I said, damn right it's not. My sister and I were disgusted with it. Absolutely disgusted. And pretty much that was the end of Tuesday. Other than my mother got very ill the following day. So Wednesday came along. And on Tuesday, we'd got my mother out of bed and into the recliner chair, the chair that's motorized. So we were happy with that. But she was very tired on Wednesday, and we decided that wasn't going to happen. So, but what happened during lunchtime of Wednesday was my sister said that she had trouble swallowing her tablets, only ate half of her dinner, and she'd called the GP. And I said, totally understand. Thanks very much to my sister. I'll take control of this, obviously, when you go. I'll let you know anything that happens. And I must admit, I noticed when it came to lunchtime, I gave my mum soup. It took over 40 minutes to give her a sippy cup full of soup. I'm pretty sure you know what a sippy cup is. It's what babies have with that little nozzle at the end, with a vent hole for anything that's hot that kiddies use to drink from. And it's a marvelous tool for people that are disabled, etc., because you can hold it and control the flow. It's not like a straw where they have to suck. You can tilt it and control the flow. And about half an hour after giving my mum her soup, the last carers came in for the evening. So we're now at about 7 o'clock. And one of the carers turned around and said, I think you ought to call 111. And what they said is, we can see sweat coming from your mum and she's very clammy. And this was all after I'd given my mum soup, and she was okay, but tired looking. There was no sweat coming. There was no clamminess. So her situation was getting worse. So I immediately phoned 111. This is Wednesday, by the way. And I had to answer all their questions, which I'm sure if you've ever phoned 111 is her abdomen swollen? Is she bleeding profusely, etc., etc., which have nothing to do with the situation, but I understand they're crib sheet questions. And they said they'd call an emergency ambulance out. While this was happening, the carers were holding my mum's hand, looking after her as best as possible. I was in a bad way because I'd pulled my back at lunchtime. I'd exercised as best as I could that day and decided not to do a walk. Now, I walk every day, so I'd walked on Monday and I'd walked on Tuesday, and on Wednesday was the day I thought I'll mow the lawn. And that was the wrong thing to do because it pulled forward and it yanked my back, and I then suddenly found I couldn't walk very well at all. I was hobbling. So it was painful for me to stand for any length of time, but I wasn't worried about that because I was phoning 111 for my mum. The ambulance crew came along and said her oxygen levels were fine, her blood pressure was a little high, and her blood sample that they took didn't seem to have anything bad, but they did do a breathalyzer thing on her, and they said there was sounds coming from her left lung. I'd already measured her temperature with my electronic measuring device that goes in the ear, and that was 37.5, so that was within limits because you also have an age selector, and I put it on adult. So it was 37.5. That seems to be fine. And the ambulance crew's version was 37.4. So mine was 0.1 out. Nothing special. And they said, again, that was perfectly adequate as well. But they decided they were going to take her into hospital to the emergency assessment unit for a doctor to see her because they couldn't work it out either. So this was half an hour, should I say an hour before me going live with my friend Ian on Wednesday. So I sent a message saying I'm going to be late. The ambulance crew told me it was not worth me going with my mum because what would be happening is that they'd be going for an X-ray and there'd be a GP immediately looking after your mum because of her age and frailty. Not to worry, and try to get a good night's sleep and know that she will be in the emergency room, not in A&E or anywhere else, for you to go tomorrow. And because of the fact that she only came out of hospital 3 weeks ago, we know that the times are 8 till 6, I believe, for visiting. Could it be 8 till 8 actually? So excuse that. I'd have to look at my little pieces of paper for that. But anyway, I told my sister everything that was going on. She accepted it and understood and was concerned like I was, and we agreed that we'd meet tomorrow at the hospital. She'd go directly there. I would go directly there as well. I'd not go earlier than her, so we agreed that we'd go at 10 o'clock, give them time for the morning to get out of the way with the breakfasts and the doctors and nurses. And I did my live on Wednesday much later. I was there at 8:30, 8:45, something like that. And the distraction really helped me. I'd had another piece of bad news that day from my friend Mainmeister, who gave me a call. And I won't go into that because it was personal. It was about a person that we both knew, and one that my mum knew as well, because he came down with Mainmeister to my house 3 years ago to go to the first ZAP event, very close to where I live, and he was coming from Scotland. So this guy that came with him was the first sight of him, and I got to know him. My mum got to know him, and so Mainmeister was very nice and told me some bad news about him, and it was sad to hear. It's something that most people now know about, because if you're a friend of Mainmeister, you'll know him on Facebook and he's posted something, but it's not really here for me to read out. It's very personal between him and my friend, and I will leave it there. But it was damning news, and it sort of like just tells you how you should embrace everything that goes on in the time that you're in. I'll say no more than that. So Thursday comes along. I had a very bad night because I couldn't walk. The painkillers weren't doing what they needed to do, so I had to up the strength. I thought that lying flat on my back very early on Wednesday night would help, but it didn't. But I've been here before, and I knew that this was something that you need to exercise out. So I looked at my bed and thought, I need to elevate my legs. So the night of Thursday, I will put cushions and pillows and lay flat on my back with my legs elevated. I will not up my gabapentin. I refuse to do that. It says on my box that I'm allowed to take up to 8 a day. And currently I take up to 4, but generally I take 2. So I went back to the old school of doing 2 in the morning and 2 in the evening. And so that meant I've upped it by 1. And the cocodamol, I have kept the same, 2 in the morning and 2 in the evening. But I've had to take 1 after 4 hours, and then 1 again after another 4 hours, and then take the normal. So instead of going 8 tablets, I'm now taking 6. And I was going to gauge it. Now, the whole point was I had to go and see my mum. And when I got there, they told us some news. And that was that it looks like she'd had an infection. They don't know if there is a urinary tract infection. They don't know if the infection is totally in her lungs, so they called it communicable pneumonia, which is the exact thing that caused all this a year ago last March. So they pumped her through a spectral antibiotics routine. Now that is everything for a urinary tract and everything for chest infection. And they did that as a liquid form. And they'd already told us that they were feeding her with assistive. We couldn't give her a cup of tea. I'd brought a flask, but not allowed. And they told us it's a waiting game. We stayed as long as we could. My sister needed to get back because she was waiting for a delivery of the pads. Remember from last week that the incontinence team had not come back to us. They still hadn't come back to us. So my sister had bought 4 packs of pads at a price of nearly £60. And they were going to be delivered to her home address because they couldn't be re-delivered to me, which is because it's done by credit card. You know how some companies are really fiddly about this. You can't re-deliver it to an alternative address. It has to go to the address where your credit card is registered to. So, yeah. She had to go back for that. And I was in pain and needed to go back to get some more medication because, as you can imagine, 4 hours had lapsed. So I went back. And the good news was that they gave us sheets. The hospital gave us them after I told them the story of Millbrook. Brilliant. So I was carrying home a bag of 2 sets of sheets with slide sheets. That's 2 sets of sheets, 2 sets of slide sheet. Quite heavy. And my sister was already carrying heavy stuff. So I had to go very, very slowly. My sister was very supportive when I was walking home. She was now walking faster than I could. And it's usually been the other way. And we got in and had a discussion. I had to keep walking in and out. That was my exercise to try and stretch my legs and stretch my back. And then kept sitting in the living room and then going back to my room. And we were then talking about what we were going to do the next day. As a courtesy call, I made a call to the out of patients team, that's the care team, and gave them a courtesy call, giving them what I thought was going to happen, which is I thought my mum would be out Monday. I said I can't see them getting her out by Friday, because remember, this is Thursday. And they then told me what happens. If you're in hospital for 72 hours, the care package, what we've got, lapses. And then when she's discharged, there is a recommendation given on the care package, and it will be another 4 to 6 weeks, but it starts from afresh, which is actually good news because we only have 2 weeks left of the care package. I said, how long does it take for that to turn around? And they said, usually about half a day. So it looks very much like if they discharge, the care package would be on the day that she comes out. So that's marvellous. During Wednesday, I forgot to mention this, my sister got the bad news that her operation that she needs next week, remember I talked about her operation was the 29th in previous blogs, had been cancelled through an emergency, which meant that they were looking at putting it to July, and that wouldn't suit us because we've got a care package in place to look after my mum, which means that I would be alone and there's no second person like in my sister to help while she was, if it was in July. We would have to fork out for a nurse 4 times a day while that was going on, and that would cost us probably nearly £1,000. They said that they'd call her back and see if there was anything that they could do. So my sister not only had the problem of the problems that are going on with my mum, an operation that she's waited for 2 years was now under threat. I told her not to worry and we'd sort it out, and anything that happens we'll work out. We'll charge it. We'll do anything that we have to do. What I mean by charge it is use a credit card, whatever. We'll get through this. Don't worry about it. Now, the good news is on Friday, that situation changed and the operation is still on the go for the 29th. Brilliant. So don't worry about that. So we get to Friday. I turn up and the alertness that's in my mum is like night and day. I said, "Hello, Mum." She said, "All right, my duck." And I said, "Do you know who I am?" She said, "Of course." "What's my name?" And she read out and she told me my name. She hasn't been able to do that for 5-6 days, which, if you can remember, really upset me because she couldn't remember my name. And my sister came in about 5 minutes later. Same thing. "Who am I, Mum?" She mentioned her name. Marvellous. We both went, wow, it must have been. This infection has been growing and it's clouded her mind. And then suddenly the doctors came in and they wanted to talk about it. And they said, it looks very like good news. It's great that she seems to be more alert. And the infection, we don't know what it is, but we've given her a spectral type antibiotic system. And that usually is so potent and strong, it kills the infection 99% in that one bout. And that looks very much like what's happened with your mum. So if you're agreeable, we'd like to discharge her and we'll give you everything you need. Now, we had major discussions with her on this. We had no problem with it. Don't get me wrong. I was in a bad way with my back, but I want my mum home, so that's not a problem. Coming back in that time means that the care package would not reset. That's a downside because we could have had another 4 to 6 weeks. But we've still got the 2 weeks, so we're happy. No problems. Okay? We got the sheets, but I don't know how to put them on. But that's a phone call that I made later that day. No problem with that. Happy for the drugs to be delivered to us. No problem with that. The only problem would be how to get her home. So, if you could ever imagine it, it's you ask for an ambulance. They have to know what they're bringing along, stretcher, wheelchair, whatever. And you don't know what time they're going to come. So, they wanted to make sure everything was in place. They came away and said, "We're happy for you to have the same care package and the same team." I said yes to that. They said, "You need to make a phone call when you get home to arrange for the care to start." Their recommendation is have the care package start for the evening session. Remember, we don't know what time she's being released. And after a discussion about it all, they decided that they'll set the clock for the ambulance with stretcher. I have to add a stretcher, not wheelchair, to come from 11 o'clock in the morning. So you got 11, 12, 1, 2. Okay. So I got home, realised about the sheets, made the phone call, got the information about the sheets, which is the sheet needs to go underneath. It's a stretch sheet. And the slide sheet you put on, it's not a sheet that you put on all the time. It is rolled under your mother's body when she's on it. And I'd already put it all, I'd covered the bed with this sheet. So I had to remove it. Not a problem. It's just That's not how the instructions read at all. But I did exactly what this lady said. I asked her the question, have our questions been answered in regards to her medication? And what I'm trying to talk about here is the swallowing. Most of my mum's tablets are tablets. And what's happening is she's putting them in her mouth and she's chewing them because she's forgotten how to swallow. Okay? So the vascular dementia has got to a point now where she's forgotten how to swallow, right? This is an early sign that things will be bad for my mum, which is distressing to me, distressing to my mum, but we need to sort the situation out on how we're going to feed her and how we're going to give her these tablets. So in the discharge letter, they've written an email to the GP saying, take her off of one tablet. That's fine. We're happy with that. And can you review the other tablets and change them to liquid form? Brilliant. What I asked then was, when am I going to get these liquid tablets? Because we've got a problem with giving them to her. They said it's on the go. Expect a lot of changes very quickly. Okay, I said, not a problem. So I got all the tablets out. And when she was discharged and she came in, I had a bag of stuff with a discharge letter. And my sister was present. And this is now 4 o'clock. So they were late. Yeah. The stretcher was no good. They had to bring a chair. That meant I had to get the ramps out. So that was not a problem. That meant we had to use the travel mate. That was a problem. They didn't know how to use it. The care package is not in place for them to use it. And we've only used it once. We scrambled and managed to get my mum comfortable in bed. That was the important thing. And I managed to put the washing on, because she was obviously took her pajamas off and she had a gown, and I'd got fresh pajamas for her, which meant we were down one set and I needed to get these in the wash as soon as possible. That's because these pads, we haven't got any more of the pads that we want. That's the ones with these Velcro straps. They arrived, but they were the wrong type. They were pull-ups. It's not a problem for a carer, because a carer that's trained can turn your mother on her side, both sides, and pull these on. But it's a problem for us when the care package goes. And my sister couldn't get them changed because we'd opened one packet and it was a no return policy. So now my sister needs to look for a supply of these packages. But what we agreed was on Saturday, that's the following day now, she would not come to the house. She would go into town to Boots and try and get these pads. Not a problem. So I had my mum for longer on Saturday. Anyway, so Friday we had a new set of carers come in. I had to explain the whole process to them because they'd never been with us. And they were asking lots of questions. Do you not have a gown? No, I've got pajamas. Are these the only pads you got? Yes, these are the only pads we got. Sorry, there's been a mix-up with them. And you've put this sheet on wrong, which is the slide sheet. It should be on permanently. They fixed that. Thank you very much. So you can imagine I had to get the buckets of water. I had to get the toothpaste and everything already. And I was explaining where the towels were and the derma cream and the wipes, the blue bags, all of that sort of stuff. All again from scratch with a new regime that I now have to administer. Got that out of the way and got the medicine all sorted out. And inside this medicine was penicillin in liquid form and penicillin in tablet form. And it comes with a syringe. So there's a proper syringe that you shake the bottle with, put the syringe in, pull it out, and there's 10 millilitres of this white goop. And you put it into the person's mouth and you push the syringe and it goes right down the back of the throat. Great, but all the others are still tablet form. So I'm using a sippy cup with some mineral type yogurt type drink called Fortisip in a sippy cup to get the tablets down. And a knocker was at the door, and it was a motorcyclist with a package in his hand, which I could see said my doctor's surgery address. And he said, "Hello, I've come to give you a package." I went, "Okay." He said, you look bewildered. Are you expecting one?" I said, "Well, I could be. Is that medicine?" He said, "Yes, I've come from the hospital." "Okay." The doctor's surgery, sorry. He said, "I have to ask you some questions." He said, "Who is the patient's name? What's the first line of the address?" Duh, I'm living in it. Thought that was a bit silly. Here's your package now. I said, "Don't you want to know date of birth or something?" I mean, that seems a bit of a silly question. What address are you at when I'm living in it? He said, "That's all I have to ask you." I said, "Oh, you might want to look at that." Anyway, took it off. I opened it, and it was a liquid form of senna. Senna being something that I give my mum as a tablet to control the constipation. So we have had a review of her tablets, but it's just senna. Don't care. We've got another syringe and another thing that I don't have to give my mum a tablet for. So that's Friday. And we get to Saturday, and my mum is still recognising who I am. The carers came in, did their job. It was carers that one of them was one we'd already known, and the other one was from last night. So it pretty much was a little bit better than the first night with two new people. The toast was a real problem of getting that down my mum's throat. It took over 40 minutes for one slice of toast with marmalade with the crusts cut off. Again, it was the tablets, this time with a syringe with the other tablets. And I got the tablets also ready for my sister, and I washed up the toothbrush, the hand basin, the towel, the flannel, the sponge, got everything all ready for when my sister arrives and when the next two carers are there. And my sister brought in the pads, and you can't get these strappy pads. So she had in her hands another set of pads, which are pull-ups again, but they have a better absorbency level, which means they should cause less leaks. We decided we've got 1 pack of those, 4 packs of the other. We've got to now try and get rid of those. We'll have to have the ones that are more absorbent used at night only, and get rid of and use the other pull-ups other 3 times. Okay, so we're now going to use the 60 odd quid ones, the 4 packs. We'll use those in the morning, and 1 at lunchtime and 1 midday, 1 mid-afternoon, and we'll use the new set, the one with the more absorbency, at night, because we've only got 1 pack of them. And we will continue the search for the Velcro strapped type pads. So we were in place, and on Saturday I therefore looked at my phone and composed my blog, and in the evening I tried to rest my leg, gauge my medication, and on Sunday it's more of the same of Saturday until I sit here doing my blog. That's my mother's section only. Let's get to me and work. On Monday, I was still in pain, but I got my laptop out and I started to do my work, and I had a meeting with my manager and said, "I'm happy to continue, but I'm not in a good way." This was before I pulled my back on Wednesday, by the way. "Do you think it would be good for me to do a phased return, which is what my physiotherapist said was best for me, or would you like me to extend my fit note?" She thought for a moment and said, "I think it's best that if you're not in the right way, that you shouldn't start work. What I propose then is that you do extend your fit note. But what I'm also going to do," she said, "was I'm going to phone occupational health and see if we can help you by having an occupational health report done on you, and maybe that will improve your chair. I said, what a good idea. I think that's a good thing as well. So I said, but I don't know how long to extend my FitNote for, so I'll extend it for 2 weeks, which takes me to after the bank holiday, the May bank holiday. So it'll be something like I think it's the 6th of May that falls on. That's been a godsend because of what happened to my mum on Wednesday, which you now all know about. I kept in touch with work, but I haven't told them about my new back problem. But I'll worry about that because it could get better and might not be an issue. That's work. So there's very little to tell you about work other than thank God that they're thinking and they're doing an occupational health report, which I think is the best way. Myself, what can I say? That is not a challenge. That is a major problem, what happened this week. And I've had no sleep, pulled my back. YouTube has not been the help that I need due to other factors of YouTube, which I might talk about later on, but it tends to inflame a bad situation, so I may not. And full of heartache, but I'm still alive. And I think it's the call from Mainmeister that's made me think, keep going. Keep going. Don't think about this. Just do. And you could probably see I'm getting quite emotional. And this might be a good time for me to take a break before I move on, because I am moving around a lot. My back is hurting. And all I know is that I'm thankful for all the support that I got on Wednesday from Ian's stream, my friend Mainmeister in particular, and anybody that's going to leave a comment. I do understand the people that are not commenting at the moment, but it is difficult for me. And I did do a video this week which I got good support on, but there was some badness in that particular video, which was just a review of Suspiria, and it upset me a little bit. But I have to live with the fact that they want to hurt me. They're not hurting me because it's the things that are going on with my mum that's hurting me. But I do look at YouTube as something, as a joyous area for me to go to, and it's not becoming joyous. What I think a lot of people need to understand is no matter what's happening in my life, this diary is not going to go away. People can do what they want or say what they want, but it'll never go away, because it's not a blog, it's a diary, and it's a legacy to leave behind for my nephew and nieces and family. And they are the thoughts that are going on for them to know what their uncle or or I'm a godfather and all of that is, for them to see what I was up to, what my passions were. Which means that I need to do other things like play games and do live streams and all of that sort of stuff, because then they see what I like to do. It's when negativity occurs that those are hard to do. But I have no control over it. All I can say is sod that and do it, and I'll do my best to do that. That's all I can say at the moment. It's why you see less and less of me. And I'll try to address that. I'm going to take a break now. I hope you don't mind. Back is hurting. I've got to the point where I do need to take a new tablet, so that's good. So I'll do that, and maybe that'll improve for the second stage of this blog. Diary. See you in a moment. And I'm back, and a lot's happened. I went to take my tablets, and I thought I'd go and see how my mother is. And my sister was there feeding her with tomato soup, and we had a chat about food and also what's going to happen when my sister goes for her operation. And there was talk about extra things that were needed. So, of course, I asked questions in regards to what extra things. And she was talking about all sorts of stuff that would help me. And I said, whoa, hang on a minute. Some of the things that you've mentioned are things that I normally get. So when it comes to the soup, yeah, we need to expand on tomato. We need to get some more beef, maybe, mushroom, that sort of stuff. Stuff without chunks because it's got to go in the sippy cup. And I said, but that's my remit. It's what I get in the monthly shop, so I can get that. And I can go and get that Monday. What's these extra things? And she was talking about salmon and stuff. And I said, yeah, but you normally get that. What you're actually asking is how to cook it. And I will need help with that. No denying. So she told me, and I said, right, so we've got a plan. I'll go and get some soup tomorrow. It'd be nice if you can cook some batches of things, like I bought some mince. It'd be nice if you could do that, and I can just then add gravy and give her that with mash, because that's all easy chew. That's great. Because we've got to think now variety of soft foods, not just liquid like soup. She agreed, and we'll have a chat about that a bit later on. But it was so nice that she was thinking ahead. I just told her it can't be all on your head. It's got to be some of it on mine. And I can do some of this. Because she's got enough worries. And after a nice talk, she said, I'm going to go and get some chips from next door. Do you want some? I went, wow. Yeah, I'll have a few of yours. I don't want a big plate, it'd be nice. I said, I've been eating crap recently. I've been eating crisps and getting myself a toasty now and again, or some cheese and crackers. I haven't been eating well. She said, right, that's changing. And she went out the door and got me some chips. So I've just had, they're any sort of like that stuff that's fries and stuff. It's from a deli next door that cooks sort of like French stick rolls of things and paninis and stuff, right? So they cook those sort of chips, not a fish and chip store. And I've had those and took my tablets and I'm back. That's pretty much what went on. So there's some more bits of information. So everything's going swimmingly there. I mentioned to her as well the tablets are all ready for her and we're short of some. And I said, after this blog, I'll go and do a repeat prescription of mum stuff. And I'll have to do a recce of mine as well to make sure I've got enough painkillers, because I've been going through those shockingly fast. So, yeah. So we get really onto the shout-outs. I'm sure there's a good few things I've missed that happened last week, but you've got the crunch of what's going on. It's all to do with my mum, all to do with her well-being, and all to know that there was a happy ending. But I can't say that it was a challenging week. It was a disastrous week. And there will be those sorts of weeks. And the only sad side is the targeting to make me sad, which I'll fight. I'll keep going. But when you're at your lowest, and the lowest I've ever been was when my heart attack, and I would say that this comes damn close. It's hard. But anyway, not resting on laurels. Let's try and boost things up. So, shout-outs. And as I have always said, thank you very much to everybody who watched and listened. I do know it's difficult for a lot of people to write a comment. They've got their own lives. I've noticed it gets shorter. I'm not worried. This is a diary. And a diary means that it's the onus is on me. What the comments do is give me something to read out, something to answer. And they're an addition to something. So don't think that I'm ever miserable because there are less, and nobody should get worried, but there will be less because I suppose what in people's minds they're thinking he's got enough on his plate, I won't ask. I don't want people to think that. Please comment. But if you don't, not a problem. There are things that I can do. Like I say, it's just really nice. It gives me support and it strengthens me. Just like a like does, a comment does. I don't have the subscriber limit to hype a video. So anybody that's above 500, by the way, has got a button called hyped. I can't have things like that. So, I live with what I've got. And what I've got is fun and I'm happy with. So there we are. So I'll read out the shout outs. They are Robert's Retro Gaming, Ian Hill The Ramblings, Colin Jones aka Ponder, Wee Bob Art and Martroid. Like I said, it sounds like a small list, but it's 2 less than last week. And on the highest amount of shout outs, which was when my mother went into hospital after breaking her leg, it was 14. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 9 short, but that was the highest amount. So you can imagine it's not a big thing. So anybody that watches, thank you. I hope you're getting some enjoyment out of it, and I hope you learn some things if you're a carer yourself. If you are, comment. Maybe you've got some ideas on what I can do with my mum and so forth, What I will say is this is one of the reasons why it's a big problem, the swallowing. We know from my sister and I, after doing a lot of research and talking to a lot of people, know that the vascular dementia problem is a big one on the brain. And what the brain does is it controls certain functions. It tells your body how to swallow, how to drink, how to breathe. It controls many functions, your organs. If she's having trouble swallowing, it won't be very long before the brain probably says how to breathe, how your heart beats, all of that. The functions will continue in your body, but your brain tells you the things that you've learnt from as a baby, what to do. It will take that away. So swallowing is one. It won't, it's not an art. It's not like a million miles away that the brain will stop the function of how to breathe. And that is a worry. But at the moment, we don't think of those things. We do the norm. So I'm going to read out these comments, but a big thank you to everybody that watches. And to be quite honest, it's really just for you to have a laugh with, get enjoyment out of, everything that's there, that's going on in my life, if you see what I mean. And maybe there are things that you can learn from it. That's what my hope is. So here we go. First one, in no particular order, Robert's Retro Gaming. He's got his own channel, by the way. And you know that when I do my what I watch, I talk about him then. But what a great guy. I've known Robert for a number of years, and we even had a server together on Minecraft that, unfortunately, because of where he lives and where I live, we couldn't get on it very much. But I did a number of things, and he thought, wow, that's good. And he did, wow, tons of things. And unfortunately, it wasn't enough to keep it going. So we cancelled the main Meister Minecraft server. That's what it was. But in the time that we had, 30 or so odd days, brilliant. I look back at those times and love it. And to be quite honest, I backed up the world, believe it or not. I think it's on a hard drive somewhere. So sometimes I could go back in and have a look. Be nice, that. Yeah. Anyway, he puts, hi, Dell. It's nice to be able to get outside and do some things in the garden. it's a little premature for that where I live, although the weather is getting nicer. We just had a snowstorm system pass through, but it didn't dump much snow where I live. Some of the folks downwind are getting as much as 40 centimetres. Wow. I do know Canada's weather system. It's very similar to ours, but I do know colds are really cold and hot is very hot. We don't get a lot of that. But yes, isn't it lovely to go out in the garden? And that's where the problem started on Wednesday for me, where I did something stupid. But there you go. And when you say it's a little premature, my dad always said the garden is a total thing that you do every month. Doesn't matter on the weather. You know, in the autumn you can put stuff in. In the winter you can prune back. In the spring you can prep for summer. When summer goes, you clear up the summer debris and you start the whole process again, and it's turning the earth over and getting rid of weeds and putting mulch down and all of that I've learned. And the only downside of it is you don't want to go out in the wet. You don't want to go out when it's windy. You don't want to go out when it's cold. It's a lot of rubbish to that. You've got to do it if you're serious about it. I'm a part-time gardener. I do it because it's the garden to the house. I don't want it to look scruffy. My mum, the idea was that when my mum woke up, she could look outside the big patio windows that we got and see the garden looking very clean. That was the point. And the perennials that I put in last year, remember, I did talk about my garden last year, they survived the winter. We didn't have that much of a frost. There's a ton of weeds I've got to get rid of, and I trimmed a lot of it away and turfed up the ground on stuff. But I did that before stuff got bad when my mum broke her hip. So I've got to get back, and that's what I tried to do. And it was actually just mowing the lawn that caused the problem. So you can imagine it's a good job I wasn't bending down and pulling out weeds or holding heavy equipment like strimmers, which I could have been doing. Anyway, you continue. As you are well aware, the more movement and exercise you can manage, the better off you will be, and it tends to speed recovery. I exercise a couple of times a week and I sometimes overdo it, which isn't the best of ideas, but it can be tough to tell at the moment. Keep it up, and thank you so much. That's just the sort of thing that I sort of know and I need to keep in my brain. It's why I was doing my walking on the Monday and the Tuesday, and on the Wednesday I was trying to do gardening, because that's where you're stretching your back left and right, up and back and forward, and I just overdid it. And now it's medication to hide that so that you can continue to do that, because it masks the pain, but you're stretching and it's getting that medication right, and that's where I'm at. I know you do the shout outs every week and I appreciate it every week. Sometimes it's time to say thanks, so thanks. That's honestly really nice. I hope people that watch this appreciate that you've said thanks. I know it's difficult. You can't do that in your own videos. Your own videos is you. You know what I mean? I sometimes get a bit jealous. You know, I saw on somebody's stream this, and I'm having a go. I'd love it that I was doing that, but I do less output at the moment. But I do think sometimes when a call out comes out, it not forces me, but it pushes me in the right direction to bring stuff out. Do you see what I mean? Ian does that all the time for me, and God bless him. Marvellous guy. What can I say? All of you, nice, absolute fantastic people. Okay. You carry on. I carry an e-link e-reader with me just about everywhere I go. I've only ever bought Kobo readers for myself, and my current one is great. It's called a Ellipsa 2E with a 10-inch screen, which is perfect for aging eyes. I just finished the first book of the second Girl with the Dragon Tattoo trilogy, written by a different author, because
I'm glad you're enjoying the second Girl with the Dragon Tattoo trilogy. A 10-inch screen can indeed be comfortable.
Alexa, stop. Alexa, listen to that. I'm going to have to turn that off, you know.
Sure how to help
Alexa, stop. There we are. Written by a different author because the original writer passed away. I like to make time for reading, but I don't always manage it. Another thing to add to the to do more of this retirement list. Yes. And that's why I looked at my Kindle. Yeah. And I then decided to look on the YouTube about Kindles, and I found out something disgusting. Apparently, and I don't know if this is a rumor or not, old readers like mine are now obsolete, and they're sending a link down very shortly, a firmware update, that stops you doing anything. You can't even read the books that you've bought. If they're not downloaded, they'll be gone, and you won't be able to download them anymore. That is because they're updating their website for their existing readers, and it closes loopholes in security. This is a deliberation that I read on YouTube, which every single video I saw said that's nonsense. They just want you to buy newer Kindles. Your options, therefore, are don't download this firmware update. Download all your stuff. Store it somewhere. Etc., etc. It went on and on. And that's something that I've got to do. I'll probably do it this week. I have got certain books, but I also have a lot of books on there that I put on there myself. It was not a jailbreak, but it was a workaround. And being as my firmware is not updated, I can still do that. But the firmware update did give you more options on extensions. And what I mean by that is books are in certain formats, and I can only do a certain amount because I haven't updated my firmware. If I update my firmware, it might download this new update. If I'm lucky, I can download the update before that happens and stop. That's something I've got to research. I'll look into that. Brilliant. I like that ellipser you're talking about. You and your sister are clearly doing the best you can for your mum, and that's amazing. You'll get through it all, and I hope that your relationship with your sister and her family is a positive one for all of you in the future. We're managing, and I think you can tell by the joyous nature, a lot of the crap is put to one side for the moment. I know it can rear its ugly head again, but for now, it's all about mum. And that's what's important. You continue, it's been nice to see you and hear you this week. There's something about hearing people talk about their events in their lives as well as their thoughts that is compelling. I first got into that habit with Mainmeister and then reconnected with him and the community on his Discord, which happily included you. And I've got my own Discord as well, and I'm in both of them. And although I feel like a limp wrist on Mainmeister's Discord now, where I was fully in there talking to lots of different people, I feel my opinion doesn't really matter too much in there. But I do like to come back and say hello now and again, and that gets me through difficult weeks. So thank God for people like Mainmeister and anybody that's in my Discord. Thank you. I hope you find it a joyous experience. I try to go in there and put some links to interesting things. And I give people carte blanche to promote themselves. I generally promote them for you. So when Steve does a video, I sometimes put his stuff up. When Robert does something, I sometimes put some of his stuff up. And we Bob, and it goes on and on and on. Sometimes missing me. I don't think I've put my blog in there for a couple of weeks. I've got a lot to do. So, yeah, I wish you all the best to you and your mum as always. And thank you so much, Robert, and salute to you. That's brilliant. Thank you so much. And he's got a channel. You'll find it in the description of this diary. Please go and have a look. We move on to Ian Hill, The Ramblings. And as you know, he's one of my best friends. on a Wednesday, I'm overjoyed and overwhelmed. I've met some interesting new people. Highlights, Cy Robson, Jamie of Muckman Movies. What a guy he is. Nice guy. Tony Yorks, who I take the mickey out of every week I'm in there. But I tell you what, he's one hell of a person. If he wasn't there, we get upset. That's what that's like. And so many other interesting people that come in on a Wednesday. And I have Wee Bob come in and Rocket Bunny. They're all from my side of things. They're interested in films and TV and just life in general, because we talk about everything in there. We talk about rice puddings, what we used to eat, TV of the past, TV of now, films of the past, films of now, injuries, infections, school life, bullying, everything. It just goes on and on and on. And it's a way to vent in a way, but it's also a way to talk about our passions. And it is film heavy, but that's where it should be. A passion of Ian and mine's is films. And there's a lot of people that go in there that are able to go to the pictures and want to keep physical media alive. And I'm one of them. I wish I could go to the cinema more. It will happen. I'm listening to everything that people say, so I know what's good to watch when I can watch it. So thank you so much. But what does Ian say? Let's get that out of the way. He goes, "Hi, Delboy. Hope you and your mum are okay, and she's now back home after her hospital admission. Hope your health is improving a little bit more too." Obviously, Ian is aware of what happened on Wednesday, and he was the first person I contacted. He was the first person that said, "Do what you've got to do," and I can stop, but if you say that you want to come back, I'll start it off. And I told him to go hell for leather, carry on, not because of me. You don't stop because of me. You do it. And you do it because it's a passion and people want to hear you. Made it perfectly clear. So anyway, he goes, "Enjoyed our live. I'm pleased that it gives you some escape. It went well, but goes by very quickly." It does. "Every week we will continue to do it." And that's a set in stone remark. We had a little chat afterwards, and I told him that things were getting difficult, and he gave me such confidence and said, "No matter what, you're here, and you're here to stay." And that's the sort of thing I need, just listening to things like that. I got emotional before. I'll probably get emotional again if I continue down this route. Thank you, my friend. You may be Father Christmas or Captain Birdseye when Christmas season is gone, but to me, you're Ian, an incredibly good friend. "I have only just started to improve with the pain in my left hand. I am left-handed, so it was difficult to give it healing time, since I use it a lot in my daily life activities. Today was able to write notes easier for the videos I was recording. Congratulations on Coventry reaching the Premier League. You will be able to join my team, Leeds United. I'm trying to stay up." I think you'll stay up, matey. I think Tottenham are the people that is the worry at the moment. We've already got 2 confirmed going down. And not only were they promoted to the Premiership guaranteed, they are now champions of that table because they won by 3 points on Friday, beating a team 5-1. And that overjoyed me because it meant they got a cup and they're out of there and into the Premiership. I won't talk about the Premiership and what I think of the future, but LFC last week says it more in regards to that. The downside of it is on Saturday, Oxford had a slim chance of staying up, but they were confirmed going down, even though they won. That's the football game, unfortunately. It all relies on other results. And so where one of my Midlands teams, where I nearly live, I live in the Midlands, but I'm between these 2 points, Coventry and Oxford. One of my teams goes up, the other one, which I don't support, but is it a Midlands team, goes down. And that's sad. Very sad. It is based on results that happen through the year. You can't look at it as what they're doing at the end of the year. They should have done more. They didn't. But it's a slim margins, these things, and the Championship is probably one of the hardest fought, which is why I watch it more than the Premiership. The Premiership, to me, became that place where the elitists are, and they seem to stay at the top, and the others you can only hope for to be in the mid-table. And every season they just kept going, let's see if we can get into the top 10. And that, to me, just proves to me it's an elite club, and one where, even though Coventry have now moved into that, you have to look and say it's fair game, they're going to be at the bottom of it. But maybe that won't be the thing. Maybe their style of play will be so surprising that they'll win those difficult games. Who knows? They've got a good manager. They've got a good solid team, which I hope they keep a lot of those players. When you go up into a new league, you tend to find they sell a lot of old players, buy a lot of new, which might not fit in. And right now they've got a team that work well together, but can they beat the top flight? And we'll see. So yeah, you carry on. In terms of watching films this week, not been as many. The Gorgon, 1964, a Hammer film starring Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee and Barbara Shelley, was a highlight. Also a French film, Mr. Klein, 1976, with Alain Delon in the lead role. Set in the occupied France in the Second World War, it was directed by Joseph Losey, who is a favourite director of mine. So my question this week is, why do you think we enjoy watching top 10 rankings of films and music, especially when I know how difficult they are to compile myself? He's put to do, but it's the same thing. All the best to you and your mum, and have a reet grand time. And he does it that way, reet grand time. And I will. Why do we like top 10s? I have to say, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan when the question is asked of me. And the reason for that is, just like you said, they take an astronomical amount of time to do. You've just done one, which I'll talk about later, called My Top 10 Films of the 1980s. Well, that's 1980 to 1989 in every genre. And the 80s was an expansive time for me going to the pictures. I saw a heck of a lot, more than any other years. And that includes the 90s and the noughties and moving into where we are now. I watched more then than any other time. And to single it out to 10? Wow. And then I feel obliged that I need to find those films in my collection because I know I've got them. But they're all over the place because my situation is I don't have shelves. I live in this one room. And so it's very difficult because I'll just be talking about it like this. And that's very boring to the viewer. So where I'm not worried about the hard work. It's the time with my mother as it is. And the fact I'd never find the videos or the physical media that I've got to prove how much I love the film. And that's sad. But why do I like top 10s? I do like them. And I think it's because I'm nosy. So you've chosen those 10, have you? That wouldn't be my top 10. And you just go, and there were some films in there probably I haven't seen. Now, I know of two people that have done this already. That's Jamie, Muckman Movies, and Ian Hill, The Ramblings. Of those 10 that they all brought out, I'd watched every one of Ian's. Sorry, Ian. At every one of them. And, they're brilliant films. What a great choice. With Jamie, 8. 8 of 10. Not bad. On physical media, of the 10 that he chose, I had 6. Of the ones that Ian showed, all 10 I had in my collection. I checked my database. Although I didn't have the Dune that he had. He had the 1984 Dune by Arrow. Mine was an earlier release, and it needs to change. It is a great film of mine, and I missed the boat on it because it came out at a time where I was buying steelbooks, and that wasn't a steelbook. So, yeah, I need to fix that, and it'll probably cost a bit of money. Better get saving, I say to myself. But what's the other reason? I'm a nosy person. I like to know. I like people to elaborate on their collection, on why it's there, why they saw it. I like to hear the stories behind the magic, the 10 films. And I like to, if it's a film I haven't seen, learn about why it's such a good film. And then it encourages me to go out and watch it. All of that means that you can sometimes be disappointed because you know all of the films they're talking about, but there'll always be a person that with a different 10, with a possible film you don't know about. And that's the compelling part. I don't like reaction videos too much. I like seeing people's collections. And I like talking about them. So, yeah, that's my reasoning. Hope that's a good enough answer for you, Ian. Thank you so much. And we'll move on. And by the way, Ian has got his own channel. It's listed in my description. I do a live with him on Wednesday, but he does far more. He does shorts, and he does reviews, and he does showing of his collection and hobbies. He talks about music, although I must say, Ian, I think it's about time we had a little bit more about your music. You did things about the old grey whistle test and Kate Bush and all of that sort of stuff. I know that we collaborated together getting your Elton John collection better. I hope I filled you with information that you didn't know, because I'm a huge fan, being somebody who plays keyboards, and you can still see my keyboard over there. It needs a good workout as soon as I've got some space and time. But I missed that a little bit, and I'd like to see some more about your music. You talk about it sometimes, but it's always in relation to a film like Goblin and Suspiria. I'd like to see some CDs, please, and possibly some background, why you choose it. I know you're a big metal fan. I need to speak to you a little bit more about that, because I need to do a little bit more on my knowledge of metal music. So we'll do that off air at some point. We'll find a time. Be very interesting for me to have a new hobby, do a new interest, look at something. Something I started and stopped, which I should never have stopped. It was a good friend who introduced me to metal. Great guy. And I stopped. And I need to start that up again. Anyway, we'll move on. He's got a great channel. Please look at the description. We move on to another guy with another channel who's having a lovely time this weekend, because he's gone to Leeds to go to an arcade place to play arcade games for a weekend. What a nice thing to do. And he lives in Wales. That's a trek and a half, right? So I'm wishing him well, and I hope he's having a grand time because Ian is near Leeds and Jamie is in Leeds as well. And they've gone to an arcade club. Maybe they know about it, but they don't talk about it if they do. But anyway, this is Colin Jones, aka Ponder. He's got 2 channels. He's put, all I'm going to say on your opening statement is it's not your fault. Anybody who follows you knows exactly what you're saying and are deliberately trying to make you feel bad. Yeah, less said about it, the better. I know who my friends are. I hope there are no more of the people that think that my friends and they're not, and they just want to make a statement on how much they don't like me. Please, I'd rather you just not watch anymore, to be quite honest, but I appreciate that you do, and I hope you find some fun in it. But if you're just turning it on, watching for 2 seconds to drop something else, if you can stop, I know that might be difficult for you, but it's a request of mine. But anyway, you continue. Keir Starmer does not deserve to stay as Prime Minister. He's just taking responsibility. He's just not taking responsibility for his actions or lack of, and that's a poor leader. Yeah. You have to put your hands up like we all do. I put my hands up and I say, I did wrong. Right? I did wrong. And you then try to turn that around. And you hope that because of the admission, people will stick with you. Don't lie about it. No point in that. You get found out. Okay? So, there we go. He continues, you're both doing amazing things for your mum. Send in my regards as always. Thank you so much for that. Are you actually ready to go back to work? ? Which I think I've answered at the beginning. Thank you so much for that. The cat game is Stray. I could not think of that name. Never played it, but that's because I know I wouldn't have the time. Yeah, it's one of the problems I've got. Cardiff City went up too, though not top. Coventry, at the time of typing, only need 3 points to seal top, and Ipswich only have 3 points leeway, even if Coventry lose all their games. So it's quite safe, but not 100%. And now I have someone else to keep an eye on. Very true that, and they got their 3 points on Friday, Colin. So yes, you wrote this days before that. Thank you very much, and it's a passion of mine. So yes, it's because of my dad, the football, and I think that's probably a lot of people's thing is their parents, not just their dads, that are supporters that pass on that support and you go on with it. And it's something that continues their legacy in a way. Every time I talk about Coventry, I talk about my dad. Keeps him alive in my mind. So, yeah. You continue. I had a feeling you'd choose the Amiga 1000. Yes, I did, didn't I? And that's exactly what I asked. Not which is the best, but what you thought was the best for you. And your answer was brilliant. It was a touch and go because I did more work with the A2000, with the Genlock and the video toaster. But my God, I bought the A1000 when nobody bought it. My friends bought A500s 2 years later, and I was in that no man's land of no software. Or leading edge software that cost a fortune. Deluxe Paint. I can tell you now how, Deluxe Paint was a damn expensive package to buy when I bought it. And ray tracing stuff was in its infancy. The demo scene was the thing that pushed you to buy these tools. The ray tracing came about because of the juggler. Anybody remembers the juggler? He juggled ray traced balls round with a checkered floor where everything reflected off of it, and it looked so futuristic and incredible. And it made me go out and buy ray tracing software and learn about ray tracing, where you put things down, what surface you speculate it with, where you put the light source, how things refract. All of that came into stuff. And it's funny, everything I ever did was with a checkered floor. I couldn't get past everything else where everybody else was doing things like oak surfaces, like a tabletop with cloth. I went, nah, I want a checkered floor. Amazing, really. I'm boring like that, I guess. You continue. The 3D print you showed that's brilliant in parts is very similar to the method I'm going to use for the arcade build. Wasn't it good, that little 3D printed thing? I nearly bought Steve's 3D printer, but in a way it was fortuitous that I didn't, because I now need all that money. It's a shame. I've done a search and I'm still able to save, but it's not good. It's now at best 50 quid a month. So yeah, it would have taken me an age to give Steve back his money. I could use my credit card. I would then be paying interest like mad. I had a place for it as well, believe it or not. And I so want to do little Marvel figures and paint them. I think it'd be really good for me to get myself a magnifying glass, the little paint sets like the Warhammer stuff, because we've got a Warhammer store, you see, in my town. Go in there, get some supplies, and print off these little figures and then paint them and learn to do delicate painting and have them. The smallest Marvel stuff I've got is the Eagle Moss collection, the chess set that they did, and the figurines, and even the movie set I bought. But they were already painted. They weren't made of plastic. Some of them were made out of the resin type stuff, not lead figurines. But yeah, I so would love a 3D printer to do that. I know there are lots of figurines out there. There are ones that are larger that you keyhole the arms in, and the detail on them is amazing. There's this one artist that sculpts, that's done the 3D prints of these for you to print out, and they're Spider-Man, the Green Goblin, Venom. They all have keyhole stuff, but the amount of resin that you'd need to print out 3D wise, because the arms are not going to be hollow, they're thick, they would be a lot of money as well. But I'd print one out. Oh my God, I would. I'd be there. Oh, doing it. Yeah, let me move away from that. I will keep my thoughts on the new Neo Geo AES to myself for now, except to say it's retro done right by the wrong people. More when I answer your question in my vlog on Monday. And there's an advertisement that I'm happy to read out. This guy's got a channel. He does a vlog. Different to me, I do a diary, but he does a vlog and it's exceptional quality. And he's doing it this Monday. And I asked him some questions, 3 questions, in fact, because I love his channel and I want it to succeed. And I thought, I'd like to know your thoughts on this. So that's what I did. And you've got a question for me, you bastard. Jesus. Oh, excuse my French. But, yeah, he always does a question, so I shouldn't really say anything. And it's great that there's one there. He's put, I've just watched a video on the rise and fall of NFTs. And he's put in brackets Cold Fusion. And would like to hear your thoughts on the whole thing. Wow. NFTs. Those are, what's it called? Non-fungible tokens or something. Something like that. If I remember rightly, this was a big thing 5 or 6 years ago. And it was where digital stuff becomes something that you can own and sell. What I mean by that, You could draw something on the computer, which would just be a file, a JPEG, right? And you could sell that, and you could put things in the background of that file that proves it's yours. Like you could show ownership of a picture that you've got by a certificate of authenticity. I think the word was blockchain. I don't know so much about this, Colin, to talk about, because it was almost sounded a lot like crypto functionality, crypto coins that we saw years ago that still go on today. And the thing about it that I liked was ownership of something that you've created. But there was a stupid thing that happened where an artist did this picture and it went to auction. Auctioning off a digital picture. What do? Email it to you? It's like, no, this is weird. And I think I looked at it as it being in its infancy, and I believe it died a death, didn't it? So I take it Cold Fusion is a YouTube channel. So I need to go and look at it, don't I? And I'll do that. Maybe I'll do that and come back next week, matey. Maybe you'll bring it up again so that I can then read out what I discovered, because I can't say that I can bring it up again unless I put it in the My Watch area of my diary. So, yeah. My opinion of it back then was, nah, that ain't going to work. And the pros of it was, if I did something, I could go down the same route. I could make something mine and nobody else can touch it, because I proved I did it and it's mine. The bad side of it was, how much? And what have you really got? What if your hard drive fails? What if your memory fails? What if that picture? How are you going to read it, look at it, watch it? You know, no, that won't work. And I think I was right, because I think it died, didn't it? I need to go and check that video. Maybe others need to as well. Cold Fusion guys and gals, go and have a look. I'm going to. He's got a channel. Please go and watch it, and salute to him and all the others that I've mentioned before. And we move to Martroyd. He says, hi, Del Boy. I was at my sister's place over the weekend and somehow ended up watching a couple of films. The Roadhouse remake and Thrash. I certainly had not planned it to. It just happened. A bit ropey in places, obviously, but honestly, I had a great time. Sometimes you've just got to switch your brain off. Let your hair down. If you've got any, which I remain quietly optimistic, mine may resurface one day. And I hope it does, if that's what you're looking for. You continue and enjoy some gloriously trashy popcorn nonsense, right? And absolutely you're right. You have a bad day, you get the things done that you need to, you sit down, you turn your telly on and you veg. And why not veg with something new? Rather than just going through channels and then eventually you look at nothing new, you go back to an old thing that you've seen a million times before. Why not think of a new old thing? Brilliant. Marvellous. Thank you so much. Now I just need to get some water and I'll be back in a moment. It'll be seconds, don't worry. There we go, and I'm back. And if you haven't guessed, I'm exercising my leg wherever possible. And just checking my phone, and I've noticed that Steve's put up a new video, which I'm looking forward to watching after this. I think he's playing Dead Souls. And yeah, I'm drugged up to the eyeballs, if you haven't guessed, cocodamol. And so if my eyes go or you see me going drowsy, I'm trying to hide it as best as possible. But yeah, and it's clouding sometimes of my brain a little bit. So if I ramble, apologies. But we got to Colin, I think. Let me scroll up. Was it Colin? No, it was Martroid last. See what I mean? It was only seconds ago. And salute to him. What a great guy he is. You know, he comments every week, you know. Doesn't matter if it's about me. He comments, and I love reading out what's going on in his life story. We all have a life story. It's nice that people can put what they're doing this week and all of that sort of stuff. So I'm very happy that that happens. And we get to Wee Bob Art, the last one, as I said. Listened along, he says, and hope you feel a bit better moving forward. But we all have our ups and downs, good weeks and bad weeks. Thanks for answering my question. You came up with a lot of animals in games in the end. Monty is the one that I enjoyed hearing, as it didn't pop into my brain. What about Spiky Harold? Forgot about him. The Housemaid that you showed at the end is a pretty decent movie, so probably worth holding on to. That said, it is not a movie you can particularly watch more than once, or at least you would need to leave some time between watches. So it's going to be a bit like The Sixth Sense, possibly. I always considered that to be a class masterpiece of a film, but once you know the end and the surprise, it less watches. And once you've watched it a couple of times and you've seen the things that you missed the first time, less watches. And it then turns out to be, is it something new to keep so that you got it, or is it just a hanger on? And The Housemaid sounds like it might be one that you wouldn't hang on to. We'll see. I will be watching it and I'll do a review. Anyway, you say, all the best to you and your mum. Hopefully the care side of things works out with your sister's operation, etc. Yes. And talking about that, I've already told my sister that every day she will get a text from me telling her how my mum is, because she's going to need recuperation time. She's going to be in this operation and she's out within a day, but it's a quite long and a horrible operation that will blacken her eyes because it's all on her head. It's a nose section. It's here. This bridge. And yeah, it's going to be absolutely awful for her. And I said I'll be sending my love every day because I'm a supporter of my sister. We have differences of opinions and agreement, but she's my sister. She's blood. I love her. It's as simple as that. And even though I could lose everything based on her decisions, that's the roll of the dice. So she will get all of my love, all of my attention in the next week. You've got a question for next time. That's now. In Project Zomboid, there is a fishing mechanic, which is a nice feature, but it can be quite tedious. Trying to catch fish over and over. What mechanic of a game, if you can think of one, gets you bored or annoyed? Anyway, mate, you are always in my thoughts, and I tend to listen to you to at least one of your videos every other day. Quite often, it is the Christmas lives that you did, as I'm weird and like to hear people talk about Christmas in the middle of April. You'll love the ones with Denny and Colin and that. They're some of the most watched, believe it or not. I'm happy being weird though, and why not? We have to embrace our own uniqueness, and it's great that you embrace that. But you had a question, and you want to know what annoys me in games that's tedious, and I must admit I try to avoid those, but there are some games. In Planet Crafter, it was air, believe it or not. Now, I still want to play that game. I still want to go back. In fact, I'm itching to stop this now and play that game. But I know I've got my mum and all sorts to think about. But there have been games in the past. Let me think. They're modern ones mostly. I'll probably talk a couple about 8-bit ones. Let's see. There's a one called Wall World and one called Dome Keeper. And it's funny because the mechanic tells you what the downside of the game is. So those games are all about mining, right? In Wall World, you're a spider crawling up a wall. And you get to a point in the wall and you mine, you dig in, and then you get all this gold and stuff that you mine. But every 2 to 5 minutes, you got to come back, get into your spider thing, and destroy a load of creatures that are attacking you. And they come in waves. And when you destroyed that wave, you've got to go back into the mine and to the point where you were mining and continue to mine until you've completed that area, and you go back up and you crawl up the world and you do the same thing again till you get to the top of the wall, and that's the game. But it's tedious. Dome Keeper's the same, only it's on a flat surface. You're in a dome, it's got protection, and you drill down and you drill this lovely mine, and the drilling bit is the fun bit. You go down and you drill and stuff falls out, and you take it back to your dome and you expand and upgrade and all of that. But every 5 minutes you've got to do this and go up, and then you're attacked and you've got to destroy all these creatures. And it's tedious because it's the mining bit that you love. And there isn't a sandbox bit that says take that bit away and just mine. So yeah, not great. Things like Terex and I don't know, Craft World and those types of games, Stardew Valley, which I've rarely played, have all got this living element where to survive you've got to fish or hunt or whatever. And it really does cause you grief because it cuts up the excitement of the game. You want to go out there and fight things or build things, and you know, oh, I've got to eat though, ain't I? I've got to drink though, got to breathe though. And it's that mechanic again which comes in. And I mentioned that in Planetcraft, so that's air until you terraform the planet. It's part of the game, but it's a pain in the arse that you run out of oxygen, die, go back to a certain point, you have to find yourself to pick up the stuff that you lost, and it's a grind. And grindy games, they're fun at the beginning, but then they become an annoyance because you're so now forward and advanced in the game, you'd hope that that part would cease to become a problem, but it doesn't, because it's there all the way up to the end. Because the last thing that happens in a lot of these games is the whole world gives you air, and then you don't need to worry about air, and that's the end of the game, really. Or you've mined all the bits and that sort of thing. Luma Island comes to mind. I told Steve about Luma Island. I did a video, a live stream of Luma Island. In that game, the problem was every day there was a day and night cycle. Everything that you chopped down would regrow. So grass, you'd have to chop the grass down again. So it's almost like going out and mowing your lawn every day. How boring is that? Can you imagine that? It'd be like hover bother, wouldn't it? The whole game is just about mowing the lawn. That's what that mechanic is. And it's a grind, boring grind. I don't know. So I suppose I better go to 8 bits. I finished the game Impossible Mission, and it's just been redone by a great team, by the way. And I know the person that did the graphics to it from a casual chat in 20th Century Gaming's live streams. But the problem with the first possible mission was it had two things that you had to do. Assemble puzzle pieces. And these puzzle pieces you had to work out in 3D in your head. Rotating them round, changing the colour, mapping them over the top of each other to come up with a card that lets you into a door. But it also had this big keyboard thing. You went into a room totally empty apart from this one computer and a great big checkered square thing. And it was a Simon Says game. Simon Says. I mean, anybody that knows Simon Says, it was a handheld or big toy with 4 colours, and it played a tune, and you had to play the tune in order. So it was red, green, blue, yellow, 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 red, blue, green, and you had to remember that and follow suit. It was Simon Says, basically. And the fun part was the somersaulting, finding the pieces, getting the ladders correct, all of that sort of stuff, and then it stopped you dead in your tracks because you had to assemble these puzzle pieces and do this Simon Says game. Awful. That mechanic I did not like. It ruined what I consider to be one of the perfect games. And I know there'll be others shouting and putting their fists to the screen. Impossible Mission, what a load of shit, crap game, blah, blah, blah. I liked it. Nothing wrong with me liking a game, is there? And there were probably so many other games like that. Frankie Goes to Hollywood probably is one. The Batman games, climbing up and killing some enemies and going on a car chase and doing the same thing again. Untouchables might be one. Yeah, I found those games grinds. And I think the word I'm looking at here is that fishing is a grind, the game. The biggest one was Guild Wars 2. In Guild Wars 2, you went out and you did some fantastic things in the real world. But it forced you to go back to your home district. And there would be a signpost and it would say, you need to make sure that you order enough seeds to plant, water, help this boy in your district who's being bullied, and order some stuff for crafting. So you'd have to go back, plant the seeds. When the seeds have grown, chop those down, take those ingredients, make a potion, help this boy, etc., etc. But you had to go back there every day. If you didn't, then that world stops. And at certain points in the real world, you'd need a potion that only you could do if you were going back to your daily grind. I want a game that takes me away from the real world. Why do I want to worry about gardening when I'm battling ghouls and ghosts and goblins and orcs? Yeah. And it was a way for them to make you buy things so that you didn't have to do it. So it was a thing to say, you don't need to buy anything in our game, but you probably will, because the grind that you have to do to get the items that you're talking about, it'll be easy to get in the shop. Yeah. So that turned me off. Yeah, and I dare say World of Warcraft has a similar thing. So that's my bits there. Yeah. What else can I say? And that's the end of the shout outs and the comments. We now move on to what I've watched. So we're near the end now. And what I watched on YouTube has been very short. So this is going to be quite quick. There are the 4 things that I always mention, which is This Week in Retro, Tech Moan, Gadget Show, Chronologically Gaming. So This Week in Retro had that story about the Neo Geo. Talk about that in a bit. 2 Tales of the Wild West, which was quite interesting. And TV gets retro gaming, which I knew about, really. But there's always something new, I find, in This Week in Retro. So that was great. Unfortunately, their lead story was something that I knew about very early on in that week, and I even asked a question to Colin on it. So go and see what his answer is in the vlog that he does tomorrow. Techmoan did a review of something called the Sharp GF777, and he said original and best ? So he was saying, I've got this dual tape player boombox thing. It came out years ago. Is it the best thing on the market, or are there things now that you can buy that are better? And then he told us what the price is of this device if you wanted to go on eBay now. And it was selling for just parts on eBay for £1,000. And what in working order, although it did say as seen, was £1,700. Wow. I thought to myself, you want to sell that, mate? Retire. Wow, £1,700. You've got a one that works. Yeah. Think I might be selling it. But I do understand I'm a collector, and I probably wouldn't let it go either. There you go. The Gadget Show was a story about what killed 3D TV. Now, I've only got one niggle with the Gadget Show, with what killed 3D TV, is they put in their thumbnail, why was 3D TV a failure? It wasn't a failure. That's the thing. I hate it when I hear the word failure. 3D has come and gone so many times. It's been in movies, it was on TV, it then turned to physical media, then it turned into a higher aspect of high definition TV, where it then died. But you see, technology moves on. And what they actually said in their argument is that TVs was given a heavy push in 2010 to have 3D, but died a death in 2015, 2016, where there was no 3D functionality in the TVs that you buy. But that's 5 to 6 years of TVs and millions sold. And even when it comes to physical media, I bought, and in my collection, no word of a lie, it says I've got 108 3D Blu-rays. That's a lot of Blu-rays, and a lot of 3D. And it says it died, and it did, but it died because of technology. And it died because people are lazy and don't like the fact that they have to put glasses on and charge them up and get the TV to a certain sort of like quality, you know, like the brightness, contrast, all of that sort of stuff. And there wasn't enough TV content. Sky had 3D TV, but it died after 2 years. You could watch the boxing, the Formula One all in 3D. But it became costly. The 3D cameras alone would, as an outside broadcast, would cost them a fortune. So we turned our backs because we moved to 4K and then HDR. And that 4K and that HDR meant that you needed a new pair of glasses, a new TV, and then you were going to get a similar experience unless the technology grew, and it didn't. So 4K grew, 3D didn't have any more money put into it to improve it, and it died. So was it a failure? With the amount of TVs sold and the fact I've got one upstairs that I won't get rid of, it's not a failure. It's just technology moved on. So that's what I have to say about their thumbnail. Then we've got Chronologically Gaming, who is still in the Christmas, or should I say December 1982, and he did a review of a game that we wouldn't have seen over here because it was on the Tiny Tutor. That's what he calls it. And it was called Monster Inn, which looked all right for the period, 1982. And he went on to talk about what the 80s were to him, which was great. Love that. So there you go. That's the big four that I watched. I'm just going to take another break because I must admit my leg's hurting. It won't be a moment. So I've got my water and we move on. And like I say, chronologically gaming was the last one. And he did Monster In on the Tommy Tutor. And that was the 4 that I watched. And the next thing I watched was Robocast. That's the channel. And it talked about why SimCity died. Now, I think that's because I watched this week a recap of LGR talking about SimCity. He's a very passionate guy about SimCity. And I bought all the SimCities. I bought SimCity and then SimCity 2000 and 3000 and 4. And I did go to SimCity 2013. Now, SimCity 2013 was a game that I played under Electronic Arts, under their new app that you had to have to sign into. It was a bit like Origin. So I had too many of these little apps. And I loaded it up and it was buggy as hell. Made a city, saved it, went back in the next day, waited for a server to appear that I could go on. It took 13 minutes, I think. And my save game was corrupted. And I spent hours on it and left it. And I thought, I was really getting into this, but I can't play a game like that. Awful. And 13 years on, where we are now, people are going back and they're discovering that it was patched and patched and patched and patched and patched. They made it having to be online all the time, so you could play it singularly on your computer, and most of the bugs are gone. And is it worth playing? Well, you see, there's a game called City Skylines. You see, when all of that was going on, a new champion came along and started a new legacy. They've got their own issues, you see, with their second edition of City Skylines. I'm not so sure that those problems are still there now. In fact, it's probably quite good. I think that the development team on that was far better than Electronic Arts Max's team, because that team's now dead, defunct and gone. There's no programmers there for it. But he did turn around and said it's worth going back because you can relive and play the game that it was supposed to be when it first came out. Should I therefore download my Electronic Arts app and load up? Don't know. I don't think I've got the time now. But I tell you this, SimCity soaked up so much of my time. It's probably maybe the 3rd or 4th longest gameplay game I've ever played is SimCity. Not The Sims. We're not talking about that. I never got into that. But SimCity, yeah, that's a history of mine. And a good history as well. So, maybe. Then I saw a channel called Mr. Atomic Duck, and his channel was called, his video was called a $12 zombie survival game that works! ! And the game he was talking about is called Surround Dead. Oh god, play on words. And apparently it's got a huge following, costs next to nothing. And it's a zombie game like what Wee Bob is playing, but in 3D, not looking particularly great. But it's done right, apparently. And I watched this video and I could see what he was talking about. You can polish up anything, but you've got to have the game mechanics in. And the game mechanics looked like they were good. You could do almost anything you want. And the things that you don't like, you can switch off. Great. Then I looked on my Steam library and I've got it already. So I must have bought it in a sale and never played it. So that's one. The next thing is the thing that was in This Week in Retro. I saw it first in a video called from Sega Lord X. I think he's well known in the industry. I think I've watched a number of his channels when he's done some comparisons on Castlevania and stuff. But anyway, he talked about the new Neo Geo AES Plus. And this is where I have to sort of like stop and reminisce a little bit, because I had the Neo Geo AES, the original, in 1990, 1991. which I co-owned with a friend, and we had some games. Magician Lord was one. Alpha Mission 2 was another. And these games are well known to anybody who knows me because I've played them on emulators and in MainMeister's stream. And I even gave Magician Lord as a game to try to my friend Steve, who of Steve Still Plays Games. So is it something I'm interested in? Yes, of course, because this is a Neo Geo that's not got a field programmable gate array in it, an FPGA chip. It's actually the original Neo Geo built from the ground up with quality of life updates like HDMI and so forth. And you can even buy cartridges. It will take the old cartridges, and it comes with a controller, and there are many buying options. There's an anniversary edition, there's an ultimate edition, and there's this basic by the AES, and it's in the £200 bracket for the lower end and nearly £800 for the ultimate edition. But the ultimate edition comes with all the game cartridges, which cost nearly 80 quid each. So if you do 10 times 80, you'll see that the £800 price means that you get the console, the two controllers, the dongle, the memory stick, the CD game player controller, and I've forgotten what the other thing was. Oh, a rack to put the games in for the price of the 10 games, which means it's a damn good deal. And the reason that I think it's good is because A, it's not FPGA, it's actually the original, which I bought and I owned at one point. So there's that part of it. And there's the nostalgia part of it, which means I had it. I had it for a year, but didn't play it enough. So it is one I'm looking at. It's all pre-order at the moment. But the one that I really would like, you'd then take the money now. And it's not out till November. And right now is the wrong time. Everything's going on with my mum. Here's a typical receipt that I've got in my pocket that I need to put away to show this is how much I paid my mum this month, just in case. So I'd like to talk more about it, but all you need to know really is I had one. And I had a couple of games, and I had it for a year, and there's a very, very strong nostalgia element. And I'm interested to know what Colin says before I even go ahead and think about it. So I'm going to wait till Monday. And the last thing on the watched on YouTube part was Matthew Foster, who did How Americans Experienced Classic Doctor Who. So I'm not an American. I've always known that Doctor Who was broadcast over there, but it was done via PBS, which I knew. But what I didn't know was they sold it in packages. So you didn't get the black and white stuff, you just got the colour stuff. And it was sold in packages of, here's a John Pertwee bit that we've bought, and here's a Tom Baker bit that we've bought. And they showed them out of sequence. And the PBSs were all around America, and they were never shown at a specific time. So it was district. It takes you back to the old ITV days, yeah? Where Central would show Alvida's Aim Pet on a different day than the rest of the country. So, yeah. You'd get the same programs, but you'd also get programs that were just written specifically for that district. So it takes me back to that. And that must have been infuriating for them. And I can see why Doctor Who didn't really gain traction. Because it wasn't like, I need to be there on Friday at 7 o'clock in the evening to watch this. Because in another district, it'd be on a Monday. And it wouldn't be the same program. So you wouldn't be able to communicate, oh, did you watch this, with a long distance writer, like a pen pal. So there you go. Not the best, is it? And that's what I watched on YouTube. So I'm moving forward now to film, TV, soundtracks, YouTube, which I'll do in just a moment as soon as I've had a gulp of water and splash my face with water as well. And Ian Hill, The Ramblings, has done all of this stuff, my God. He's done my top 5 westerns, 1994 to 1999, Doctor Who review of The Celestial Toymaker, X-Files review of Season 6, Episode 8, What I Have Watched, Episode 15, so he's on his 15th week, Live With Me, Episode 104. Absolutely fantastic, great stuff. Glad to have been a part of it. He's a great guy. I've already mentioned him before. Please go and have a look, subscribe, like, all of that sort of stuff. The likes are important. Please go over there and do that. He deserves extra people looking at his channel. Then we've got Movie Collector, who I've talked about a number of times. He's an ex-projectionist. He talked about The Matrix, which is an old film, really, but he talked about watching The Matrix with the old audio, which is harder to do because if you think about it, when you get to the 4Ks, they've redone the audio and it's not the same as the original. So sometimes this is why it's worth keeping hold of your physical media discs. So that's a great one to watch. Just Joshings did a review of the film Michael, which is a bioepic on Michael Jackson. And he did a is it worth watching type video. So that was interesting because he called it, is it the worst bioepic ever, was the question mark. Maybe it gives you a clue on what he thought, but I don't know on that. Muckman Movies, as I said, did a my top 10 films from the 80s, which I thought was very interesting. I was so glad to hear Ian Hill, The Ramblings mentioned at the end because it forces him to think about his 80s films. So that was good. He's done that now. Then you've got Mondo Chalovic Movies. He did 4K Hammer reviews of Blood from the Mummy's Tomb and Demons of the Mind, all 4K, and Vinegar Syndrome's March 2026 titles, because he's a subscriber to Vinegar Syndrome, which I'd love to be, but all their stuff's expensive. Then you got Commodon Film, who did a deliberation. This Zendaya film is back, but hilarious. I think it's because they're talking about this particular series, that it's come back after a number of years. Is it worth it? And how bad is it? And some people are looking at it as being a hilarious, fun show. Not like its predecessor at all. And its stance means it's probably not a watch, where people recommend things. So there's that. And then Commode and Mayo's Take, which is Commode and Simon Mayo, who used to have a radio show talking about films. So he did reviews of Rose of Nevada, Michael Bioepic, and Half Moon, and the box office top 10. So that was interesting. Always nice to hear the box office top 10 because it tells me what people are watching. But hopefully it's stuff that I'd find interesting as well. And we're on the last page, so just bear with me. And we're on the last part, and that is gaming and tech YouTube, which is basically most of my friends that are on my Discord or Mainmeister's Discord, or people I know actually speak to outside of this little bubble of YouTube. And the first one is Down the Rabbit Hole. He's in Canada, absolutely fantastic guy. He comments on here sometimes, and we've had little private chats, and he did a couple of videos. The first one was Vectrex Alien Storm dash no, not that one. And I think that's because when I was watching it, there's a different Alien Storm, and this one is the Vectrex version. So you don't want to get the two confused. But that was interesting. And then it was my 20-year-old Battlestar Galactica cards. Yeah, so he's got these pyramid cards. Did you ever watch Battlestar Galactica? And he's got replica cards that he bought 20 years ago. And he got them out, showed them, said how the markings work. And it looks very much like he was having a whale of a time looking at these cards. Absolutely brilliant. I mean, some people talk about some of our hobbies and state, that they're not really for them. But you have to understand that everybody has a different type of hobby. I mean, I don't have a hobby where I go around catching butterflies, say, or that sort of thing. So, yeah, every hobby is different, and that his one is TV and movie replica stuff and that sort of thing. Action figures. He's got some Battlestar Galactica figurines that he can put on stands. Brilliant stuff. Anyway, moving on to Robert's Retro Gaming, which we saw at the very top of this diary. This is all the stuff that he's done this week. And my God, the list gets bigger every week. There is Dwarf Fortress Classic, episode 35. I wish I knew how to play that game. And if I watch all 35, I'd learn. But my God, there's a lot of effort that goes into that. But I tell you what, riveting stuff. You learn a heck of a lot. That you can use in other games as well, because you know how certain traits are in all games. Minecraft Play episode 190. Yes, he's been playing Minecraft that long and more. Atari ST gameplay of a game called Black Lamp, which I remember playing on the Amiga rather than the Atari ST, but it was fun to see. Had a bit of a less colour palette than the Amiga version, because I did check it after I watched his video. But yeah, that was good. Commodore 64 gameplay of Satan's Hollow, which I'm well aware of. I think actually it was a game that I had to play as part of my friends requesting games because I couldn't get the Atari one to work, if I remember rightly. That's from memory, though. I might be a bit wrong on that. And then there's Atari 8-bit gameplay where he played all of these games. Typo, Snakebite, Nerm of Beamer, Mr. Bear, and Maniac Miner. Some of those I'd seen on Steve Still Plays Games, but it was still fun to see him try and have a go. And he's probably done some more since I wrote that up, because that was yesterday. But any money, he's done more since then. So well worth a look. I mean, if you want something every day, there's your channel, right? Every day, without fail. Now, Steve Still Plays Games has started to bring some stuff out. He did an Amstrad version of Nebulous, a BBC game called Wendy Goes Walkies, a Spectrum celebration of its 44th birthday. I found that a bit weird, actually, because I thought to myself, are you going to do one then for the Commodore 64? Because it'll be its 44th birthday soon. It's not really like the 45th or 40th or 30th. But hey, still its birthday, isn't it? So that was fun to watch, and there was some good games there to watch. And then he did a Steam video, which I can't say I watched. Now, I'll explain this. I'm talking about it even though I didn't watch it. And that is Shattered Pixel Dungeon. Now, the man is naughty because he bought me that game. And he said, here's something for you to play, my friend, between helping your mum. Wasn't that nice? Right? And I know it was in the Steam sale. It's not about the money. He thought of me, bought me this game, thought I'd like it. And how right he was, because he knows I like games like Temple of Apshai and stuff like that. And there was one I was looking at a long time ago called Loop Dungeon. And this one is more like Temple of Apshai than anything I've seen. In fact, I was dead jealous because he bought an Amiga game that was isometric version of this, really. Anyway, you go around a dungeon, traps are there, chests are there, basement levels, stairs that take you up and down, all of that sort of stuff. And you can only play as one character until you unlock the others. Right up my street. And so, because I've only played half an hour on it so far, I can't watch his video. But I tell you what, if it's in the sale, He's bought it. He's bought it for me. It must be damn good. If that's not incentive for you to go and have a look, I don't know what isn't. So there you are. Steve still plays games. What a guy. One of my best friends. We talk outside of this world we live in. And what a nice touch to think of me during these bad times. I'll tell you what, it was the second or third shining light of this week that I had, because I've had a miserable week. So we turn our attentions to 20th Century Gaming, and he did quite a lot of stuff. He did a 2-time Spectrum Live. He did Ghost and Goblins Beating the Ice Castle, which is sort of a mini long play. He did a C64 beating the last level of a game called Lili, which he forced me to play in one of my friends requesting games. And he did a Thrust video with different music. That's nice, isn't it? Because Thrust is great, bit bland on sound effects. He put some chill music there. Brilliant. And he did a live last night, which was mostly Spectrum stuff. And it was fun. I asked him to play Tau Ceti, but he didn't. Maybe he'll do that next time. Wee Bob, who I tell you is a great graphic artist. He's coming back to do all that stuff, but he does far more than that. He does film and TV and community questions and all that sort of stuff. But he's doing this series called Project Zomboid, and he's up to episode 7. It really is interesting how he's doing it. It's quite unique. Have a look. Really worth having a look on that. Colin Jones, aka Ponder, is at the arcade club in Leeds at the moment, but he did this before he went up, Tuber's Challenge of Super Zaxxon, and he did the Mainmeister Challenge of R-Type Leo. And when he comes back, he's going to have so much footage of the arcade club, and he's got his vlog on Monday. So lots for you to watch there. Go and have a look. And we've talked about Seb's Place before. Seb, now he started off as a very, very small channel, a bit like me, and he's like exploded, right? His stuff now is, well, it's out of sight compared to mine. He did a Better Than You Thought 8-bit underdog games. So not sticking to one machine, he showed off some games that he considers are underdogs, not talked about too much. And he even brought up the VIC-20 version of Perils of Willy, which I remember having back as a kiddie. Well, my early teenage years, should I say. And that was brilliant to remember that. I remember it differently to him because he was on a Spectrum by then. But if you think about the VIC-20, you'd think to yourself, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to play Manic Miner or Jet Set Willy. And it just goes to show you could. And this was back then. It's not a modern homebrew thing. Not much else to show you really, but I am going to put my overhead cam on. If I can find my cursor. There we go. I found my cursor. Just to talk about a few things. Now, some people asked, what have I been playing? And I've been playing mostly this. It's The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, right? I've had it for a while and never opened it. And I'm having quite fun with it. And obviously it's a remake of an old Game Boy game, but they've done it for the original Switch, which plays really well on the Switch too, because there's no slowdowns or anything on it. So that's quite good. And the only other game I'm playing on my Switch 2 at the moment is this that arrived. This arrived about a month ago, I think, and I never really talked about it. It's Marvel's Cosmic Invasion. And because it was Marvel, I pre-ordered it, right? And of course, you know, this one's got all sorts of bells and whistles. I never did an opening because I thought nobody would want to know. But, you know, it's quite an interesting game. It's just a sideways scrolling beat 'em up in the style of Final Fight with a lot more bells and whistles. And it's done by the people that redid the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So it's a very, very good studio called .emu and Tribute, which you can see in the corners there. And like I say, it really is quite good. I don't know if I can get that in shot, but it's quite a good game. 16 characters, you know. So that's what I'm playing. And these are the films that came this week. This is a very cheap Blu-ray of 7 Amicus films, which I got into because I talked about on Ian's stream about Beyond the Grave. And there's a House of Terrors in here. This is why you see the foreign language, because finding the British one is really difficult now. It's got Madhouse, I know that much. Asylum. These are all 70s films. So it's like Hammer Horror, but anthology, where you know, it's people that go into an asylum, or people that go into a hospital, or people that are trapped in a basement and they tell tales and all that sort of stuff. So that's great. And this, which is 20 years later, The Bone Temple, for which is part of the series of films 28 Days, etc., etc. Only this is 28 years later. So I'm quite looking forward to this. It's a steelbook. It's got Ralph Fiennes in it, so you've got a good actor. So I'm quite looking forward to seeing that. And that got good reviews as well. When it went to cinema, I remember Jamie went to see that at the cinema and he liked it. And I just want to mention this. Now, this is a gift. I want to expressively state this. Somebody watched my video of my card collection, and I happened to mention that everything I was buying was cheap and I couldn't afford the big stuff. And things in other countries are far cheaper, but I still can't afford them. And he said, I'm going to send you, because he owns a shop, this guy, he's part of my Discord. I'm going to send you a couple of boxes of some top-end cards. And I went, wow, thank you very much. And these are the cards. It's called Marvel Rivals, Eternal Glory. You get 10 packs per box. You can see it there, look. 2026 Eternal Glory trading cards. And it tells you here there's a minimum of 2 limited number cards per box. There are 5 cards per pack. So that's 50 cards in each box. Look at this, deluxe. Look at it. It's even got foil around the edge. And he sent me 2 boxes. And if you bought 2 boxes, you got this special package. And the reason I haven't opened this is really it's a nervousness thing, because I did that video of cards and I've done other cards, and although they're well received, there's always a person that turns around and says what a stupid hobby it is and all of this, and it knocks my confidence a little bit. So I talked to my friend who sent it me in China, and he said he didn't do it to do a video of it. He just wanted me to have something of a bit more value than what I opened. I mentioned it to Ian, and Ian said, you ought to open it. I don't care. And I said, yeah, I think I might, but I haven't got around to it yet. But if you'd like me to open it, please comment. It's one of those things where if people don't want to see that sort of thing, I won't do it. Maybe I should put up a poll, but I just think to myself, you guys that watch this blog are the audience. Do you know what I mean? And if there's things that you'd like me to add to this, or do something like, I'd like to see more of you playing arcade games, or I'd like to see more of you playing 8-bit games, or you've done nothing on the Amiga yet, why aren't you doing that? Or stuff like that, say so. You know, I'll try and do it. It's going to be very difficult. It would be slow coming out, not like Robert, but I'll do it. And so ends this blog. I hope you enjoyed it. I thought it was going to be much shorter. Just goes to show you, even without comments, it can go for over 2 hours. So hope you've enjoyed it. I've had a horrible week. I'm looking forward to a better week next week. I'm looking forward to good news for my sister. I'm looking forward to trying to help my mum, and I'm so glad that she recognises my name again. It must have been that infection clouding her brain. And these alerts are the things that I've got to look out for. And with that, I'm going to say salute. Thank you so much for watching. And I'm alive. I'm still here. And watch out for the next blog. And maybe this week there'll be me playing games or me doing a live stream or something. Maybe those cards could be opened on a live event. Who knows? It's all in my brain at the moment. Thank you so much. Please, please, please support all my friends. They deserve all the attention that they can get. Bye-bye.